Hi, it's Stephen Phillips from Ginfo, and thanks very much for tuning in. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the community session that we ran in May 2025 and the subsequent report that was generated from all of the discussions from that actual conversation. Now, as I mentioned, in May, our community session, I think, was probably one of the biggest revelations I've ever had in one of these calls. It was focused on contract negotiations, and it featured Dan McGovern, a former global head of sales from Moody's. As one attendee commented afterwards, and I quote, "Getting an unfiltered view of how vendors think about customers was amazing," unquote. So as I mentioned, Dan McGovern was a former global head of sales, one of the large information providers, and he revealed a whole range of vendor strategies that frankly had our attendees at this session frantically taking notes and asking questions, and it was a great conversation. Now, we covered off around about 10 or 12 different concepts, but I'm just going to cover 2 or 3 of those concepts, ones actually that probably raised the most questions and discussion points. So the first thing that had everybody scrambling for their notepads was the prioritization index that vendors normally work with. So essentially, vendors take a look at every single client and score each one with this prioritization index. It's used systemically. And this score really drives your whole experience of using that vendor, whether it's the quality of the support you receive, the pricing flexibility you get, how much time you get from the accounts team. It's really used as a yardstick to assess your, if you like, importance as a client to that particular vendor. And many attendees were actually quite shocked to hear how this segmentation works. But it's really useful to know, how and where you stand prior to any kind of negotiation you might have with a specific vendor. Now, what really then surprised our attendees was a further refinement on this concept in that actually vendors have apply a mapping strategy, a stakeholder mapping strategy, to actual individuals within organizations. So they don't just map the organization, but they map you and me and other individuals relative to their importance to the account. And these maps really identify decision makers, they identify the influencers and the potential champions within the organizations that the suppliers then target. And this then really helps inform and drive their work, striking up and building relationships with those individuals and subsequent negotiation tactics. Now, the third point on this was, frankly, the room was quite quiet at this point, but looked at the Dan reflected on the asymmetry in terms of the preparation for specific negotiations. And there does appear to be a gap between how vendors and their clients actually prepare for any renewal. Dan's insights showed that actually vendors prepare extensively for renewals. And, I think some people on the call realized that they probably weren't doing enough homework prior to a negotiation and stepping into those conversations with those suppliers. And ultimately, we have an old kind of adage here, it's not ours, but fail to prepare to fail really resonated strongly within the group here. It's imperative that you must get prepared for any potential negotiation you're entering into. And it was clearly one of the most actionable, if you like, areas that the attendees took away as something to spend time on. So in closing, they were just 3 of about 10 or 12 insights that were discussed during this clinic. And those insights, covered other strategies around things like renewal timing, pricing psychology, tenure of client or length of relationship with client, and a whole host of other things. Get the full breakdown with all our insights and actionable recommendations in our report, Improving Outcomes from Your Vendor Negotiations. If you found this useful, please click like, share and subscribe. We really appreciate your support. And if you have any comments, please share them below or use the contact us form at ginfo.com. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.